A quick note before we begin. This episode is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at theauthorinside.com/freebook. Choose from over 180,000 titles. Go to theauthorinside.com/freebook.
You're listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Inside You podcast. I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Joining us today is Charles Cassady, author of Cleveland Ghosts, Nights in the Working Dead in the Modern Midwest. Charles is a native of Ohio and enjoys writing his paranormal stories in the horse race camera tower. Welcome, Charles. Thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here. That camera tower. I wasn't in it when I wrote Cleveland Ghosts, but once I did get that gig, the books just flowed and flowed. There are three and a half of them, really, during my tenure.
Tell us, what it's like writing in a horse race camera tower. What's the view?
Basically, I'm about 3-4 stories in the air. I was put into probably the least popular of the camera towers that gave coverage throughout the race. They ideally had about 3 or 4 camera positions. And they had one that was way out beyond the track complex, where we had to dodge being trampled by horses to get there, then get through a locked chain link fence, climb up stairs, and then go up a vertical iron ladder to get in the top, where, at least when I was there, it was unheated for the most part, all year round, and subject to all kinds of scary noises and strange woodland animals creeping around at the foot of the place. Probably just mice and bunnies, but in the dead of night, it could be a little unnerving. And yet they put me in there, and I thought, I've got electricity. And during the downtime in a race, when you just got to follow them with the cameras for 2 minutes, and then you're idle for 20 to 40 minutes, depending on the weather, I could get a lot of stuff done in that downtime, and with no one watching me. So I started smuggling up laptops and desktops and audio equipment and VHS players, Blu-ray, and had a blast for 7 years.
It seems like it's a perfect place for you to write your books.
Yeah, I guess so. When you're writing ghost stories, not all my books are ghost stories. They sort of diverged off into folklore, true crime, and just some historical tales that I wanted to tell with my peculiar spin on things regarding the Great Lakes. And on the side, I also tossed out all my lots of articles and movie reviews and things. But I found it helped me concentrate.
So you do all types of writing?
Mainly the popular culture, of some feature stories. For many years, I had columns running in various local newspapers covering music, film, some theater, whatever the editors wanted of me. And a lot of that, of course, preceded my being hired to work in a camera tower. And so I had my home office set up for many years, too. And I just learned to write on the run pretty much wherever I was. And of all the spots in which I chose to plant myself and do writing, though, that horse race camera tower holds a special place in my heart. Like I said, it was not always that way. They like to inspire your readers, your listeners, I should say. I can brag with almost accuracy that I had my first book contract signed, sealed, delivered before I graduated from college.
Wow.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, that's when I tell about it, that's when it loses all the magic. It was a contract to contribute movie reviews of literally just a few sentences a piece or less to a giant hardcover published book that a fellow from the Netherlands sought to encompass every feature movie ever made anywhere within
Wow.
2 covers.
Jeez.
I just happened to be back when my life was more interesting as a student abroad. And instead of partying and having adventures, I looked for work when I was in London, England. I didn't find much, but what I did find was the classified ad that was seeking international correspondence for this book project in the Netherlands. My writing had to be translated into Dutch, and so I never quite knew how well accurately it was turning out. But because I lived there at the time, and the publisher was going to be in London for the Great London Book Fair of 1985, I got to meet him face to face, and we signed an agreement. I was going to be paid the royal sum of $1 per review, and they would run with no byline, of course. It's a giant book of little tiny paragraphs. I'd have my name way down in the credits at the back. But it was a book contract.
Yeah.
It was solid. It was something I could build upon. And upon my return to the United States with nothing but a letter of introduction on strange, shiny European paper from a publisher that no one in this country had ever heard of, I managed to sort of parlay that into a newspaper writing, a popular culture, movie review career. So you don't need that much, it turns out, even in the old pre-internet self-publishing, electronic publishing days, to get your own book contract before you graduate from college. But it still worked out for me. It gave me a curious start, and it gave me legitimacy as someone to approach individuals in the entertainment industry and basically sign up for free invites and swag and lots of fun stuff. The height of this frenzy, I was writing for a company called Visible Ink Press in Detroit, and had the pleasure of authoring a large book of children's movie reviews, but I had to give credit to a fictitious dog.
Oh.
The Video Hound got the byline. I was just a sort of a contributing writer down in the credits, editor, dog handler. So I was about to do my first book for them, pretty much a solo effort under my own name, when they had a corporate sort of meltdown and pulled the plug on their book reviewing series. So here I am, just a book of my dreams I wanted to write has just been canceled. It probably would have been more than 1,000 pages long and not sold. Not ever been able to pay for itself anyhow. Thus inconsolable, I turned to Craigslist and was just combing through Craigslist for leads on anyone who needed writers and authors. And there, in the gigs section, another publisher wanted writers about the paranormal.
Oh, okay. So now we're getting to how your book series started. Okay.
Yeah, how I started writing things besides movie reviews and under my own name. This listing really was a catch-all from a company called Schiffer Books in Pennsylvania. And they indeed have a line of, they've got thousands and thousands of books on their website, schifferbooks.com. I recommend it. They welcome authors of just about every level of functionality. I think I came to them already pretty well seasoned, if I may say so, but they probably work with a lot of beginners too. And so, yeah, Schiffer was blanketing the country with paranormal, ghost-themed books of all types when I guess that was a surefire seller for them at the time.
Well, did you need to research Cleveland ghosts in order to write the first book?
Well, that's the thing. They asked for anyone with a good background in that. And as an adjunct to my writing about movies and entertainment for local newspapers, I found out and I'd been at it for a good a dozen years at that point. I realized that just about every October, as a weekly columnist, I've always got to fill that weekly space in the Friday newspaper. Every October, if I compiled a list of local ghost stories that especially dealt with haunted theaters and haunted restaurants and haunted places of a public gathering, hey, that's a that column is written. I can relax. That'll be an easy fill, as they call it. So I started accumulating a black menacing folder full of local ghost stories and clippings and things I photocopied out of old forgotten books. So by the time I came across Schiffer's classified Craigslist ad, I actually was pretty well prepared for this with the background in local ghost lore. Of course, I still had to go and research a lot more about places in Cleveland specifically. They were so impressed by my initial pitch, though, for being their Cleveland writer, that they also said, do the whole Great Lakes. Oh. So in one contract, I signed for both Cleveland Ghosts and the follow-up, Paranormal Great Lakes.
Well, it's interesting because it seems like your life is always leading up to that point. Like you just said, you had already written these articles, so you had some in-depth knowledge. And then here you find this opportunity. I think that's very interesting how, we always say you have to take opportunities and look for opportunities, and you seem to go on these great adventures and find opportunities. So congratulations.
Yeah, I've done some of that. Of course, I'm hardly telling you about the books that never got written. It was my desire especially when I was in college I thought that the 1992 500th anniversary of Columbus reaching the North Americas was probably going to be the biggest thing ever. It wasn't, by the way. So I started researching and collecting all material about that, especially pertaining to all the rumored explorers, the Vikings, the Welsh, the Chinese, who it is claimed made it to America well before Columbus and left all kinds of enigmatic monuments. And I thought, that's going to be my book. No, that never happened. I never even had time to start reading up on it. And in 1992, I was sidetracked by the movie reviews. That never took off. I never thought I'd write about true crime history in New Orleans, for that matter. But when I was writing my books for Schiffer on the paranormal, the Great Lakes paranormal, they said, well, now do the Mississippi River as a paranormal book. And so I did a paranormal sort of guide to the Mississippi River up and down. And of course, half of that was New Orleans and Louisiana alone, because it's such a spooky place down there. And that ended up when Schiffer turned from paranormal to true crime, I already had a background in a lot of the shadowy, strange and weird history of New Orleans and their underground. Half the crime stories end up being ghost stories down there. So despite not being a resident, I begged them to let me write Crescent City Crimes, and I did. That book came out a few years ago, and while technically not a ghost story book, it's got plenty of ghosts and voodoo and wonderful things, and I'm pleased to say that at least one San Antonio literary journal, the fellow put it in his top 20 of the past 6 months.
Wow,
great.
That's great.
Wow.
When you write the books for Schiffer, are they doing the promotion, or are they depending on you to do the promotion?
Both. It was Schiffer who arranged for me to achieve every writer's dream, which of course is Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie.
Oh, sure.
I think I may have emailed Coast to Coast way early on, but Schiffer did something behind the scenes. And sure enough, I got on for 3 memorable late night hours in 2012.
Wow.
3 hours is huge on a national radio show.
And yes, and I'm part of their podcast, History Forever. Not been asked back yet, but the point is I made it to that pinnacle, and that's
that's wonderful.
Some bragging rights. As time's has gone by in publishing, I'm sure you know, even major publishers have had to sort of pull back, cut their publicity staffs, and leave more and more of the promotion and the hyping to the individual authors.
Sure. So what kind of promotion did you do for the books?
I tried to get as many library speaking engagements as I could. Contacted all the different branches around here. We are fortunately a very blessed region when it comes to libraries. Others, like down in New Orleans, I think they had to close 90% of their libraries after Hurricane Katrina. I sure hope they've come back. But I've done some in-store bookstore appearances. One library even had me conduct a ghost trolley tour.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
That was an awful lot of fun.
Yeah.
I can't say that I've gone all out completely with promoting myself at this point. I still don't have my own personal website. I defer people to Schiffers in hopes, it's not only showcasing my books all there under one umbrella, but if they find other books set in other locations and interests, great. That helps the company too. I made a few humorous YouTube videos. It was another thing I did in the camera tower.
Yes, those were fun.
Brought up a multimedia grade computer and taught myself video editing using a program that a company called Intel Play brought out as a toy for 8-year-olds. So I had video editing software bundled with all kinds of slimy special effects and computer-generated UFOs, explosions, and sinking ships.
It sounds perfect.
Yeah, very fortunately did directly deal with the subject of paranormal Great Lakes and paranormal Mississippi River. So I did a few of those.
We can put a link to your YouTube page in the show notes for this episode.
Oh, thank you very much. Be prepared for some amazing stuff in low resolution. But just remember, all done in a horse race camera tower with me periodically having to break away and film the horses running around.
Right off the bat, you're a professional writer. But did you ever find any difficulty coming up with your ideas or with the writing itself for your books?
Oh, the ideas are no problem. It's following through with them. I remember one time, the books that I have not written, there was a great classic hoax of the 1800s, the Cardiff Giant, an enormous buried statue in a field in upstate New York that was unearthed and mistaken for all kinds of mythical creatures, and even people who did not believe that the Cardiff Giant was an actual petrified giant from biblical times, they still mistook it for some kind of a Neolithic god or sculpture, or they even thought it might have been an Egyptian idol brought over by those pre-Christopher Columbus explorers who maybe started a pharaonic dynasty somewhere in upstate New York and brought the god Ra with them, and this is him. I wanted so dearly to write the ultimate book on that subject, but all the material devoted to it was in a library, just a short walk from the college I was attending. And this was back in the 1980s, no internet. It was all curated by a notoriously grumpy fellow who just had his own system, not even a file system. I looked in his archive. It was horrible, just heaps and heaps of stuff everywhere in file cabinets. And if you were not this guy's friend, you would not have access to all the old newspaper articles and ephemera dealing with the unearthing and the exhibit of the Cardiff Giant. So that idea ended up going nowhere. I think somebody did finally write about the Cardiff Giant. Hopefully the Syracuse Public Library got everything in order, didn't just recycle all that wonderful material. And so somebody benefited off that largesse. But yeah, as a quasi-historian like I am, it's you hope that there are records readily available to delve into. It is easier nowadays with so much there on the internet, but you'd still be surprised material that you just have to roll up your sleeves and go into a basement archive, or if you're very lucky, microfilm. Remember microfilm?
Oh, yes.
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just spend hours and hours combing through those records.
Well, Charles, what's the best advice anybody has ever given you about being an author?
The best advice that it comes from repeated often, and often you can't repeat it enough. Be persistent. don't give up, don't be discouraged by rejection. Now, parenthetically, I am very discouraged by rejection. I've never had to really take that advice because most of my books were the proposals were snapped up the first time I came up with them.
Wow.
I just tried to get to know the publishers I was dealing with inside and out, got to know their tastes. With Schiffer, it was a bit of a shot in the dark. I hadn't really appreciated them until I saw their Craigslist ad. But now, with the aid of the internet, in the old days, I would go to a library and look at all the books that I could find from a certain imprint. These days, the internet makes it so much more easy to see a publisher's catalog and define their interest and tailor your approach to the particular publisher.
If you were to do this all over again, what would be the first thing you would do?
Yeah, the first thing I would do, instead of wasting my time at college, even though it did lead to my first book contract, I would have, while I was still in high school, I bought my first edition of the book called Writer's Market. The trouble is then I put it on the shelf and did homework for several years before actually getting around to reading Writer's Market. And by that time I was in my junior year and kicking myself that, everything I needed to know about writing is here in this book I got used for 75 cents at the rummage sale. So read Writer's Market. It doesn't even have to be the latest edition, but it would help. That is an invaluable background. That's what I would do first. And my second thing, instead of going to college, get hired by that camera tower. 20 years before I actually was. That would have gotten me a great start and logged in far more many nights of concentration and contemplation when I could have spun who knows how many books. Because, time management is a very important component of writing as well. Some people can just toss out the manuscripts one after another, but I have to sometimes force myself to concentrate and do the work in regular fashion. That's why many authors do go to the trouble of renting an office, having a place to get away from the home, from the household responsibilities, and in an entirely different environment. And I was paid to be in my office. No running water, but what a view and horses.
Yeah, that's great. Where's the best place to purchase your books?
They're carried at Barnes & Noble. I still encourage everyone to patronize their local bookstore. It can be ordered, of course, via Amazon, I think buy.com, many others, but Thrift Books. That's a company with which Schiffer has a very strong online relationship too. And, of course, at their own website, schifferbooks.com.
So you knew in high school that you wanted to be a writer?
Yes. Well, it kind of interesting. In high school, I read somewhere that to bring out a typical big city daily newspaper was the equivalent of publishing a brand new paperback book every morning. Mm-hmm. And that really grabbed me. It got to me. I became a journalism major, really wanted to work in the newspaper business. Many years later, it hit me with equal force that, no, I don't really want to be in the newspaper business. I just want to be able to publish all those paperback books. Paperback books are cool, and they stay around. They're always there on the shelf. I've got lots of wonderful old ones myself. That's what I really wanted to do. Just the newspapers helped me pay the bills for a long time, but my heart was really with writing for more permanent readership. And once you're published, as you know, you're in the Library of Congress. If you're very lucky, you're in a few bestseller lists here and there, and in print indefinitely. And that to me is the real goal. My books are, I hope, all the better for my years and years in being in newspapers. But I like to trace my interest in being an author all the way back to high school and before, when I was just a voracious reader. Well,
that's pretty cool that, if you think about yourself as the young kid doing your homework in your bedroom, and here now where you are now, you accomplished your goal. That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And if I can do it, most anyone can do it. just not necessarily in a camera tower.
Yeah, right. They need to find their camera tower, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Right.
Camera tower. What William Faulkner famously was night watchman who wrote his books while he was in a college basement in the boiler room.
Oh.
So, yes, probably a lot warmer than my camera tower.
Well, Charles, it's been great talking to you today. Thank you so much for sharing your advice with our listeners, and we both really appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
The best thing about hosting the Author Inside You podcast is meeting the authors. I really, really enjoy listening to the author stories.
And if you have a friend who might find value in listening to these stories, please tell them about the Author Inside You podcast. And until next time,
Right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.